How do y'all feel about Chris Carter speaking out on Shedeur? Because let's be fair. He said two things earlier before the draft. He talked about how he got in the car after Shedeur had got out of the car, and how the driver was talking about how well mannered Shedeur was and how he was on point. He was all business, all this kind of stuff. But then he comes back on the podcast right after the draft, and he's talking about how Shedeur needs to be humbled, and this was kind of he had it coming, and all this kind of stuff. Why you didn't say this kind of stuff when you got in the car behind him and everybody was, and you was talking about how professional he was? Now all of a sudden that the status quo went against Shedeur, and that's when they asked him. They said one of the guy that he was on the show with. They asked Chris Carter, "Well, who is these guys? Who is doing this to Shedeur?" He was like, "The system, the system." He would never say nobody name, but you keep saying Coach Prime name. You keep saying Shedeur name in a negative light. But when you know some other people that's doing something that's not quite right, you won't mention their name. You just kind of make it like it's a boogeyman and don't do this because the boogeyman will get you. But why you can't out the boogeyman? Y'all go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if you kind of listen, it's a lot of people saying the same thing. You know what I mean?
What same thing?
About being humble. It's your fault. It's your daddy's fault, and blah 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 blah. It's a lot of people saying the same thing. So I think it's just showing that I don't think they really support or Prime the way that he thought they supported him. You know what I mean? Because I thought they was cool, but it's a lot of people that I thought was cool with Prime. They saying the same thing Chris Carter said. That's why I was shocked. I was like, wow.
Well, now Chris Carter ain't really cool with Prime. Cause see, Chris Carter don't like the fact that Coach Prime like it's a different room for the gold jackets. Like, yeah, y'all in here, but I'm in this other room. And see, Chris Carter, he don't like that kind of stuff. Like, we all Hall of Famers. You ain't no second level of the Hall of Fame. But Chris Carter, you wasn't that. You see what that score is with Minnesota and Dallas. They got 0. Because Prime was locking them up. Like nobody watched to see Coach Prime go against Chris Carter. We watched to see Coach Prime go against Randy Moss, but we ain't watched to see him go against Chris Carter. You understand what I'm saying? So Chris always had like a little chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, Chris Carter was a bad boy, though.
Like he was.
He was a bad boy.
But Chris Carter had his flaws. He had his issues, his demons. And instead of saying we all go through certain things and kids got to have time to grow and develop, you don't give Shedeur that pass, even though you can't really say nothing Shedeur is doing wrong.
Right.
Cameras, the dude that had cameras around him in his whole life. So just because he got a camera, that's not nothing wrong. Hell, when he was at the draft, they had cameras everywhere.
I think the one thing they missing, bro, like they've never said anything about it. Like this dude never been arrested, never been drunk, got no DUIs, like don't beat on women. They're not talking about that. They talking about the gold chains and he's too confident. Bad interview. But you keep drafting these other guys that got all those issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, they got all kind of criminal records, and they still go in the first round.
Yeah, I think that I remember, I forgot who was telling this story. I think it may have been like Kevin Garnett or somebody like that. And they was like, they all showed up to the honoring of like the top players or something like that. Yeah, all these guys got gold jackets. And everybody like, yo, yeah, da, da, da. What's going on? All the gold jackets in the room. And you talk about from Bill Russell all the way to Allen Iverson. Matter of fact, Allen Iverson was telling the story. That's who it was. I mean, top players in NBA history. And all of a sudden, Michael Jordan walks in the room. And he's like, He's like, it was a difference between Michael Jordan, the aura, and everybody else submitted to that his gold jacket is like everybody else gold jacket, but there's a difference between his gold jacket and
Right.
everybody else gold jacket. I say that to say Chris Carter was one of the top receivers in NFL history. Great route runner, great hands, didn't hardly drop anything. But I've always felt as though Chris Carter, because once he was pretty much done, they shipped him to Minnesota, as a pretty much as a punishment. Like, okay, we're gonna give you a second chance, but you're going to a bum team, and that's how you go end your career, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Carter has always felt as though he was indebted to the NFL for giving him a second chance because his career should have been done with all the mistakes that he's made.
Right.
I make that point to say, to me, Chris Carter is a company man, and there's some people that become company men after they've been given a last chance, and so whatever the company wants, whatever the company says, is yes sir, yes sir, that's right, yeah, he wrong, blah blah blah. I always feel like Chris Carter was the company man. And so for him to sit up here and the things that he's saying, to me, it's like it don't make sense, because some of the things he's saying, like, bro, what do you mean he need to be humbled and all this other stuff? He's a kid, for one. Let's get that straight. He's a kid, but also he's having fun. And this is a different generation.
Right.
It's a different generation. And not only that, Chris Carter didn't carry himself like Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders created a whole aura and a whole character to get his mother out of poverty. That was the whole point. That was the whole point. You know what I'm saying? That was the whole point
Yep.
of Deion creating Neon Deion and all that type of stuff. He told you the reason why, but that wasn't him to the core. That wasn't him to the core. So I feel like Shedeur, Shiloh, and all the kids have a certain, they all take on a certain trait of Coach Prime. And at the end of the day, man, you're going to have company men. People going to say what they say. They're going to ride with the shield. And that's pretty much it. No matter if it's right, no matter if it's wrong. And Chris Carter is that type of dude. He going to ride with the shield because he always felt as though they owed him, or he owed them, for the second chance that they gave him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. That's why I was saying it's like they saying the same thing. Like him, Boomer Esiason, like all those guys that are talking bad about Shedeur, they're saying the same thing. They're basically posing the same argument.
Yeah, so it's
Right.
kind of like they read from a script. It's like it's
Yeah.
something that they was told. Make sure you mention this. Make sure you say this.
Yeah.
So it's uniform. And if you hear something
Oh,
over and
you
over
fell
and over
asleep.
again, it becomes true. Did y'all
Yep.
hear?
Yeah,
Yep.
you keep freezing up.
Yeah. If you hear something over and over and over again, it becomes true. Even
Right.
though if you don't have the facts to support it, you just don't heard it so many times, it becomes true.
Right.
And that's why I think a lot of people don't really rock with Chris Carter. Like he's been on certain shows, and a lot of the shows he's on, they end up fizzing out because people just don't like his personality. Now, one time he said that one thing about players got to understand, if you're gonna have all these dudes around you, you got to have a fall guy. So if something happened, they got to take the rap. And the NFL kind of got mad at him for saying that, but that's kind of true. If y'all finna be around me and you causing trouble, you got to stand on what you're doing. You can't come right hide behind me, get in my cars, go run up in the VIP section. Now you bring all that heat to me. Or if I'm doing something wrong and I'm paying for all y'all stuff, while we in this moment, y'all make it seem like it was you. When we get back to the house, we can figure out how we can spin this to make it seem like that when me get in trouble, because if the main guy get popped, all the good times stop. I mean, you should
Right.
be something where you get popped, but in case you get in the situation that's kind of weird, one of your homeboys need to step up and take that, so you can be paying the lawyers and stuff to try to get this stuff, make it go away.
Yeah.